Hello and welcome to the Penticton Art Gallery. My name is Paul Crawford. I'm the Director-Curator here at the Penticton Art Gallery, and thrilled to introduce you to our 3 summer exhibitions that we have going on currently here until the beginning of September. September 9th. 3 artists that were all born within 12, 14 years of each other. 1928, 1930, and 1940. 3 artists, 1 Japanese Canadian, 1 Indigenous Canadian, and 1 European settler artist, who all sort of worked and lived within 300 kilometers of each other for the majority of their lives, who couldn't have had 3 different experiences growing up in our country, and whose work intermittently overlapped with each other throughout the course of their lives, but they actually never formally met until this exhibition brought those 3 stories together. And I think it's an interesting snapshot, not only of 3 artists and the work that they did over the course of the last 70 years here in Canada, but also talking a little bit more about the complicated nature of our nation's history and all that as well. And the first one of those artists is this wonderful woman here by the name of Shizuye Takashima. She was born in 1928 in Vancouver, a Japanese Canadian artist. An artist whose work I first discovered in 1990, 91, 92 in Victoria, and has always fascinated me. And intermittently throughout the years, I'd always sort of try to find out what happened to her, where her work was at, because I was always looking to find out more, but was remarkably couldn't find much about her in her life until this last fall, and I did some research and found out that the Nisei Japanese Historic Center in Burnaby, British Columbia, had a large collection that had recently come to their possession. And so I reached out to them, and this exhibition is a representation of some of the work within their collection. By no means is it an exhaustive survey of her life's work, but I hope it's a nice introduction to just sort of bring her life story to the forefront, introduce her and her work, and perhaps some of her legacy to a larger audience that might cause other people to be as inspired by her story as I was, and dig a little bit deeper and try and discover a bit more about her work. As I said, she was born in 1928 in Vancouver, and in 1940, as with many Japanese Canadians, was rounded up and put into an internment camp. And she spent the war years at age 12 years old through to the end of the war in New Denver at the internment camp there. And that experience had a profound impact on her as an individual, on her art, and on her life. And you get to see snippets of that within here. But in 1970, she published a book called A Child in Prison Camp, a multi-award winning publication. It was the first ever sort of survey and public examination of that period of our history from her own first-person perspective. She wrote the book, turned into a movie, a radio play, and various other things. We have some historical records here from the newspaper, so you can read some of the things, articles from David Suzuki and various other people. It certainly wasn't without its controversy back in 1970 when it was published. The Japanese government banned her from doing a series of talking dates back in Japan, and certainly caused a lot of controversy here in Canada, and certainly really brought to light that whole sort of piece of our history, which was still very fresh in 1970. At that time, it was only 20, 25 years removed from that whole experience there. And after the war, most of those artists, they weren't allowed to come back west of the Rockies. A lot of them ended up east of the Rockies on the prairies. In her case, she ended up in Toronto, went to the Ontario College of Art and Design, and back in the 70s would go back there to be a teacher there on their faculty. And as I said, these works here are mostly from the late 50s through to the early 80s, and they sort of explore the influence of being in the internment camp, her own sorts of senses of spirituality, and that sort of experience was informed by that, and sort of delves a little bit into some of the other publications that she illustrated as well. She illustrated about 4 books or 5 books over her lifetime. We've got 2 of them here on display. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the artwork that relate to that, but we have some other books that she had done some illustrations for here as well. I hope her work will inspire you as much as it inspired me, and it's just a really amazing opportunity to carry that person around in my head and in my memory, because I so remember that first painting I saw of hers for 30 years of my life, and then finally be able to do a little bit of an exhibition here. And I hope it might lead to more opportunities in the future. But yeah, Shizuye Takashima passed away in 2005 in Vancouver. My name is Paul Crawford. I'm the Director-Curator here at the Penticton Art Gallery. I invite you to come down and check out our 3 summer exhibitions. The first of which here is The Offering by Shizuye Takashima, and here in our project room, the exhibition continues here until September the 9th.